Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. Airline operators are considering the use of digital vaccine passports to make life easier for inbound travelers. The Health Department clarifies that for now, vaccinated returning OFWs are still required to undergo at least 6 days of quarantine. Gerard de la Peña tells us more in this report.
Airline operators are now thinking of requiring digital vaccine passports in a bid to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. The document will contain information on whether the holder has already been inoculated against the virus. Aside from streamlining the verification of travel documents, vaccine passports are also seen to help travelers enter countries that only accept fully inoculated people.
Sa ngayon, merong internal na pag-uusap among airline operation centers sa buong AirAsia Group. May regional efforts na ang AirAsia ay makikipagtulungan dun sa pag-adopt ng travel pass, yung digital travel pass, for as long as uniform din lahat ng mga travel requirements.
While other countries have already started using vaccine certificates, the Health Department says that for now, vaccinated returning overseas Filipinos are still required to self-isolate for at least 6 days upon arrival.
So hanggang hindi pa kumpleto at hindi pa sufficient ang ebidensya to finally conclude that these vaccines can really prevent one person from being infected and that person from infecting others, and then we will retain our protocols.
Meanwhile, flag carrier Philippine Airlines has suspended all flights to Hong Kong. This after the financial hub imposed a 14-day travel ban on the country alongside Pakistan and India, all of which are deemed extremely high-risk areas. The neighboring Macau, for its part, imposed a 28-day quarantine on travelers from the 3 countries. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
The organizer of the Maginhawa Community Pantry is calling on authorities to stop red tagging those involved in the initiative. In her press conference this afternoon, Anna Patricia Non clarified that it was her personal decision to launch the project. Non added that her mother, who is a social worker, was not spared from the red tagging by the Quezon City Police and the NTF-LCAC. The community pantry in Maginhawa has been temporarily closed to ensure the safety of the volunteers.
Sa totoo lang po, wala po akong link sa Communist Party and pasensya na po pero ang dumi po ng question na yan. Malinaw ang intention ko. Gusto ko lang po may set up na community pantry and makakain yung mga tao na may kayang pantawid gutom.
Here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. The Food and Drug Administration has approved the emergency use of COVID-19 vaccines from Bharat Biotech and Johnson & Johnson. The FDA acknowledged reports of rare blood clotting among recipients of the Janssen vaccine in the United States, but maintained that the benefits outweigh the risks. And Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon is confident that their call to revoke Executive Order 128 will prosper. Drilon says they will file the joint resolution once Congress resumes session on May 17. Malacanang has time and again said it is not closing its doors on scrapping the EO that would reduce tariffs on imported pork. And some 5,000 families in the Bicol and Eastern Visayas regions are still in evacuation centers due to the effects of Typhoon Bising. In its latest report, the NDRRMC says that the typhoon has left 2 people dead, 1 wounded, and another 1 missing. And the University of Oxford will begin a study that will reinfect recovered COVID-19 patients to be able to develop more effective vaccines. Professor of Vaccinology Helen McShane walks us through their plan on Bloomberg Surveillance. Let's watch this.
There's so much that we want to understand with this trial and other trials. What's the most pressing issues that we still don't know? Once you're vaccinated or once you've been infected, can you still transmit it if you're exposed to it, or is that what we're trying to find out?
The key thing we're trying to understand in this study is what kind of immune response, what flavor of the immune response protects people against reinfection. We know that reinfection, once you've had COVID once, is unusual. It's not impossible. People are certainly reinfected again, but it's not very common. If we can understand what type of immune response is conferring that protection, we can use that information to better design vaccines, to better and more rapidly test vaccines, and better design treatments.
Professor, I noticed the virus you'll be using in the study is the original strain from Wuhan, China. Why choose that rather than one of the newer variants that we still are trying to learn more about?
Sure. So I think it's really important that we're starting these studies for the first time with the Wuhan strain. It is the strain we have the most information about, we know the most about, and we can therefore be confident to design a safe study. There are many discussions underway to think about whether in subsequent studies we could use a different variant and one of the newer, more emerging variants. But I think to start with, we need to start with the strain we know the most about.
Doctor, I had Lyme disease many times as a kid, and at the time, since I'm so old, they just thought, hit it with doxycycline and you're good. However, there are obviously lingering effects, really bad lingering issues with that. Are we going to see the same with COVID, and will you understand more about it after this trial?
So this trial won't specifically look at long COVID, which is clearly a problem with some people who have COVID infection. We are confident that the risks of long COVID after this study are very small. We will be recruiting young, healthy volunteers who have had a very mild or even asymptomatic first infection and have no signs of long COVID after their first infection. It would be very unlikely that after the very low dose of virus we're going to be giving them, that they would have long-term consequences in this study.
Can you understand through the study what it means for vaccines and whether how often we'll need a vaccine renewal?
Exactly. So this study, once we've identified the type of immune response that makes it impossible for people to be reinfected in our challenge study, we can then use that information to then test vaccines, because we then know that what we want the vaccines to do is induce exactly that kind of immune response. We can then look at durability, how long vaccines induce that response for, and indeed how long that response is induced for after natural infection.
So is it likely that we then get a one booster every year, maybe something that covers this as well as the flu and other issues?
This information generated from this study will address exactly that kind of question. Yes, absolutely.
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.